The Paris Opera, French, is the primary opera company of France. It was founded in 1669 by Louis XIV as the Académie Royale Copyright Ra, and shortly thereafter was placed under the leadership of Jean-Baptiste Lully and officially renamed the Académie Royale de Musique, but continued to be known more simply as the Opéra Copyright Ra. Classical ballet as we know it today arose within the Paris Opera as the Paris Opera Ballet and has remained an integral and important part of the company. Currently called the Opéra Copyright National de Paris, it mainly produces operas at its modern 2,700-seat theatre Opéra Copyright Bastille which opened in 1989, and ballets and some classical operas at the older 1970-seat Palais Garnier which opened in 1875. Small-scale and contemporary works are also staged in the 500-seat Amphitheatre under the Opéra Copyright Bastille. The company's annual budget is in the order of €200 million, of which €100 million come from the French state and €70 million from box office receipts. With this money, the company runs the two houses and supports a large permanent staff, which includes the orchestra of 170, a chorus of 110 and the corps de ballet of 150. Each year, the Opéra Copyright Ra presents about 380 performances of opera, ballet and other concerts, to a total audience of about 800,000 people, which is a very good average seat occupancy rate of 94%. In the 2012-13 season, the Opéra Copyright Ra presented 18 opera titles, 13 ballets, 5 symphonic concerts and 2 vocal recitals, plus 15 other programs. The company's training bodies are also active, with 7 concerts from the Atelier Lyrique and 4 programs from the Opéra de Danse. History. The opera under Louis XIV. Pierre Perrin. The poet Pierre Perrin began thinking and writing about the possibility of French opera in 1655, more than a decade before the official founding of the Paris Opera as an institution. He believed that the prevailing opinion of the time that the French language was fundamentally unmusical was completely incorrect. 17th-century France offered Perrin essentially 2 types of organization for realizing his vision, a royal academy or a public theatre. In 1666 he proposed to the minister Colbert that the king decree the establishment of an academy of poetry and music whose goal would be to synthesize the French language and French music into an entirely new lyric form. Even though Perrin's original concept was of an academy devoted to discussions of French opera, the king's intention was in fact a unique hybrid of Royal Academy and public theatre, with an emphasis on the latter as an institution for performance. On June 28, 1669, Louis XIV signed the Privilégié accord de copyright sur Perrin pour la copyright établissement d'un accord de copyright d'Opéra Copyright Ra en Musique, and Vosfrena Section Wa. The wording of the Privilégié, based in part on Perrin's own writings, gave him the exclusive right for 12 years to found anywhere in France academies of opera dedicated to the performance of opera in French. He was free to select business partners of his choice and to set the price of tickets. No one was to have the right of free entry including members of the royal court, and no one else could set up a similar institution. Although it was to be a public theatre, it retained its status as Royal Academy in which the authority of the king as the primary stakeholder was decisive. The monopoly, originally intended to protect the enterprise from competition during its formative phase, was renewed for subsequent recipients of the privilege up to the early French Revolution. As Victoria Johnson points out, the opera was an organization by nature so luxurious and expensive in its productions that its very survival depended on financial protection and privilege. Perrin converted the Boutilles tennis court, located on the Rue des Fosses Copyright Estrenils, into a rectangular facility with provisions for stage machinery and scenery changes and a capacity of about 1,200 spectators. His first opera Pomen with music by Robert Cambert opened on March 3, 1671 and ran for 146 performances. A second work, Les Peines et les Plaisirs de l'âme, with a libretto by Gabriel Gilbert and music by Cambert, was performed in 1672. Jean-Baptiste Lully. Despite this early success, Cambert and 2 other associates did not hesitate to swindle Perrin, who was imprisoned for debt and forced to concede his privilege on March 13, 1672 to the Superintendent of the King's Music Jean-Baptiste Lully. The institution was renamed the Académie Royale de Musique and came to be known in France simply as the Opéra Royale. Within 1 month Lully had convinced the king to expand the privilege by restricting the French and Italian comedians to using 2 singers rather than 6, and 6 instrumentalists, rather than 12. Because of legal difficulties Lully could not use the Salle de la Bouteille, and a new theatre was built by Carlo Vigarani at the Bel Air tennis court on the Rue de Vaugirard. Later, Lully and his successors bitterly negotiated the concession of the privilege, in whole or in part, from the entrepreneurs in the provinces. In 1684 Pierre Gautier bought the authorization to open a music academy in Marseille, then the towns of Lyon, Rouen, Lille and Bordeaux followed suit in the following years. During Lully's tenure, the only works performed were his own. The first productions were the Pastorale Les Varietés de l'Amour de Bacchus and his first tragedy lyric called Cadmus et Hermann. After Molière's death in 1673, his troupe merged with the players at the Théâtre du Marais to form the Théâtre Gay Copyright Gord, and no longer needed the theatre built by Richelieu at his residence the Palais Royal, near the Louvre. Richelieu's theatre had been designed by Jacques Lemercier and had opened in 1641, and unlike the huge theatre at the Tuileries Palace, which could accommodate 6,000 to 8,000 spectators, was of a size consistent with good acoustics. Lully greatly desired a better theatre and persuaded the king to let him use the one at the Palais Royal free of charge. The Théâtre du Palais Royal had been altered in 1660 and 1671, but Lully, with 3,000 livres received from the king, had further changes made by Vigarani in 1674. The first production in the new theatre was Alceste on January 19, 1674. The opera was bitterly attacked by those enraged at the restrictions that Lully had caused to be placed on the French and Italian comedians. To mitigate the damage, Louis XIV arranged for new works to be premiered at the court, usually at the Château Vieux of the Carcento de Saint-Germain-en-Laye. This had the further advantage of subsidizing the cost of rehearsals, as well as most of the machinery, sets, and costumes, which were donated to the Opéra Royale for use in Paris. During Lully's time at the Opéra Royale, performances were given all year, except for 3 weeks at Easter. Regular performances were on Tuesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. The premieres presented at court were usually during Carnival and were moved to the Palais Royal after Easter, where the openings were on Thursdays. About 2 to 3 new works were mounted each year. In all, 13 of Lully's Trigger copyright en musique were performed there. After Lully died, the number of new works per year almost doubled, since his successors had greater difficulty sustaining the interest of the public. Revivals of Lully's works were common. French composers at the Opéra Royal generally wrote music to new librettos, which had to be approved by the directors of the company. The Italian practice of preparing new settings of existing librettos was considered controversial and did not become the norm in Paris until around 1760. One of the most important of the new works during this period was an Opéra Royal ballet by Cambra called l'Europe Galante presented in 1697. Ballet. In 1661 Louis XIV, who was a dancer himself and one of the great architects of Baroque ballet, established the Académie Royale de Danse, intended to codify court and character dances and to certify dance teachers by examination. From 1680 until Lully's death, it was under the direction of the great dancing master Pierre Beauchamp, the man who codified the 5 positions of the feet. When Lully took over the Opéra Royal in 1672, he and Beauchamp made theatrical ballet an important part of the company's productions. The ballet of that time was merely an extension of the opera, having yet to evolve into an independent form of theatrical art. As it became more important, however, the dance component of the company began to be referred to as the Paris Opera Ballet. In 1713 an associated ballet school was opened, today known as the Paris Opera Ballet School. The Académie Royale de Danse remained separate, and with the fall of the monarchy in 1789 it disappeared. equals the company's names after the Revolution equals. With the French Revolution and the founding of the Republic, the company changed names several times, dropping its association with the royal family, and in 1794, moved into the Centre National de la Rue de la Loi, where it took the name Centre des Arts. In 1797, it was renamed the Centre de l'Art Copyright Publique des Arts. Napoleon took control of the company in 1802 and with the declaration of the French Empire in 1804, renamed the company the Académie Royale de Musique. With the Restoration in 1814, the company was renamed the Académie Royale de Musique. It became part of the Académie des Beaux-Arts in 1816. In 1821, the company moved to the Salle Le Pelletier, which had a capacity of 1,900 spectators and where it remained until the building was destroyed by fire in 1873. In the second half of the 19th century, with the ascension of Napoleon III in 1851, the name Académie Royale de Musique was reinstated and after 1870 with the formation of the Third Republic, was changed to Centre National de l'Opéra. In 1875, the institution occupied a new home, the Palais Garnier. In 1939, the Opéra was merged with the Opéra Comique and the company name became Copyright Union des Docentes Lyriques Nationaux. The Opéra Comique was closed in 1972 with the appointment of Rolf Liebermann as general administrator of the Centre National de l'Opéra de Paris, but in 1976, the Opéra Comique was restored. In 1990 the Opéra moved its primary venue to the new Opéra Bastille, becoming the Opéra de Paris, although it continued to mount productions, primarily ballet, at the Palais Garnier. And the Opéra Comique regained its autonomy. In 1994 the Opéra de Paris became the Opéra National de Paris. Regardless of all the changes in its official name, the company and its theatres were commonly referred to as the Opéra. List of official company names. List of venues. List of managing directors. See also. Other Parisian opera companies and theatres. In the period from 1725 to 1791 there were essentially 4 public theatres which were permitted in Paris: Opéra de Paris, Coma Copyright d'Ifrana Sectionnaise, Coma Copyright d'Italienne, Opéra Comique. In 1762, the Opéra Comique merged with the Coma Copyright d'Italienne. In 1791, the laws were changed allowing almost anyone to open a public theatre. This led to rapid growth in the number of theatres and companies and complexities in their naming. Theatres might burn down and be rebuilt using the name of an old or new company or patron. Some of the new theatres that appeared during this period include. After about 1870, the situation was simpler with regard to opera, with primarily the Opéra and the Opéra Comique in operation. The naming situation became somewhat confusing after the Opéra Comique's theatre burned on May 25, 1887, since the company began performing in other locations. Companies other than the Opéra producing operas or operettas at various theatres in this period included. Other topics. List of theatres and entertainment venues in Paris, French art salons and academies, Opéra category, Opera World Premieres at the Paris Opera. References, notes. Cited sources, Astia, Ra Copyright Guin. Académie Royale de Danse & Cohen 1998, Volume 1, pages 3-5. Astia, Ra Copyright Guin. Beechams, Pierre & Cohen 1998, Volume 1, pages 396-397. Charlton, David, editor. The Cambridge Companion to Grand Opera. Cambridge, UK, Cambridge University Press. ISBN 978-0-521-64118-0. Christout, Marie-Frana Sectionnaise. Paris Opera Ballet & Cohen 1998, Volume 5. pages 86 euro 100. Cohen, Selma Jean, editor. International Encyclopedia of Dance. Oxford, Oxford University Press. ISBN 978-0-19-509462-6. ISBN 978-0-19-517369-7. Kostanis, Maureen Needham. Beecham's, Beecham Pierre and Sadie 1, 364. Crane, Deborah. Mackrell, Judith. The Oxford Dictionary of Dance. Oxford, Oxford University Press. ISBN 978-0-19-860106-7. Forza, Anegret, editor. Everest, Mark, editor. Music, Theatre, and Cultural Transfer. Paris, 1830 euro 1914. Chicago, The University of Chicago Press. ISBN 978-0-226-23926-2. Fontaine, Gerard. Visages de Marbre et d'Oraine, La Collection de Bustes du Palais Garnier. Paris, Monem, A Permilditions du Patrimoine. ISBN 978-82822-751-8. Fulcher, Jane. The Nation's Image, French Grand Opera as Politics and Politicized Art. Cambridge, Cambridge University Press. ISBN 9780521327749. Gerard, Anselm. The Urbanization of Opera, Music Theatre in Paris in the 19th Century, translated from French to English by Mary Hittall. Chicago, University of Chicago Press. ISBN 978-0-226-28857-4. Goret, Jean. Histoire des sols de l'opéra Copyright Roi de Paris. Paris, Guitra Copyright Daniel. ISBN 978-2-85707-180-8. Guest, Ivor. The Romantic Ballet in Paris. Alton, Hampshire, UK, Dance Books. ISBN 978-1-85273-119-9. Johnson, Victoria. Backstage at the Revolution, How the Royal Paris Opera Survived the End of the Old Regime. Chicago, The University of Chicago Press. ISBN 978-0-226-40195-9. Levin, Alicia. A Documentary Overview of Musical Theatres in Paris, 1830 euro 1900 in Forza 2009, pages 379 euro 402. Petou, Spire. The Paris Opera Copyright Ra, an encyclopedia of operas, ballets, composers, and performers. Genesis and Glory, 1671 euro 1715. Westport, Connecticut, Greenwood Press. ISBN 9780313214202. Petou, Spire. The Paris Opera, an encyclopedia of operas, ballets, composers, and performers. Rococo and Romantic, 1715 euro 1815. Westport, Connecticut, Greenwood Press. ISBN 9780313243943. Petou, Spire. The Paris Opera Copyright Ra, an encyclopedia of operas, ballets, composers, and performers. Growth and Grandeur, 1815 euro 1914. New York, Greenwood Press. ISBN 9780313262180. Powell, John S. Music and Theatre in France 1600 euro 1680. Oxford, Oxford University Press. ISBN 978-0-19-816599-6. Sadie, Stanley, editor. The New Grove Dictionary of Opera. London, Macmillan. ISBN 978-1-56159-228-9. Sadie, Stanley, editor. John Tyrrell, executive editor. The New Grove Dictionary of Music and Musicians, 2nd edition. London, Macmillan. ISBN 978-1-56159-239-5. OCLC 419285866. Walton, William. Paris from the Earliest Period to the Present Day, Volume 3. Philadelphia, George Barry & Son. View at Google Books. Wilde, Nicole. Dictionnaire des docentes parisiennes aux savoir-faire, les docentes et la musique. Paris, Aux Amateurs de Livre. ISBN 978-0-8288-2586-3. ISBN 978-2-905053-80-0. View formats and editions at WorldCat. Wolf, Star Copyright Fane. Loper Copyright Raoul Palais Garnier. Paris, Deposer Copyright or Journal Entracto CLC 7,068,320 and 460,748,195. Paris, Slatkin ISBN 978-2-05-000214-2. Other sources: Tuquet, Gustave. Histoire de la musique dramatique en France, pages 309-425. Paris, Didot. View at Google Books. Dury de Noinville, Jacques Bernard. Histoire du Centre de l'Opéra Copyright Ra en France. Paris, Joseph Barber. Vols 1 and 2 at Google Books. Gorat, Jean. Dictionnaire des chanteurs de l'Opéra Copyright Ra de Paris. Paris, Albatros. View formats and editions at WorldCat. Gorat, Jean. Dictionnaire des cantrices de l'Opéra Copyright Ra de Paris. Paris, Albatros. ISBN 978-2-7273-0164-6. Lajart, Thar Copyright Eau d'Order. Bibliothèque musicale du Centre de l'Opéra Copyright Ra, Volume 1, 1671 à €1791. Paris, Librairie des Bibliophiles. View at Google Books. Lajart, Thar Copyright Eau d'Order. Bibliothèque musicale du Centre de l'Opéra Copyright Ra, Volume 2, 1793 à €1876. Paris, Librairie des Bibliophiles. View at Google Books. Lassalle, Albert de. Les Traces de l'Opéra Copyright Ra. Paris, Sartorius. View at Internet Archive. View at Google Books. Neuter, Charles. Huanan, Ernest. Les Origines de l'Opéra Copyright Ra Frana Section A's. Paris, Eplon, Murat AC. Copies 1 and 2 at Google Books. Pougeon, Arthur. Les Vrais Copyright de l'Opéra Copyright Ra Frana Section A's, Perronnet Cambet. Paris, Caravé Frères. Copy at Gallica. External links, media related to Opéra Copyright Ra de Paris at Wikimedia Commons, official website of the Opéra Copyright Ra National de Paris.